Hey everybody, it's Kyle. I'm driving home from, I just did a speaking engagement where I was able to share some strategies with some parents, and overwhelming. It was overwhelming to see their eyes light up when they realized that there's ways for them to be the greatest parents they can be for their kids on the spectrum. But what I want to talk about today is pretty simple, and I want to tell you a little bit about a guy by the name of Alex Honnold, Honnald. If you've never heard of him, he is a free solo climber. Now what that means is he climbs mountains, crazy mountains, with no ropes. Now if you haven't come to the conclusion on what can happen with a guy that climbs mountains with no ropes, is if he slips, he dies. And if you haven't seen it, by the way, there's a special on him called Free Solo, and it's about him climbing a rock formation. I believe it's in one of the national parks. I can't remember which one, but it's just a big slab of granite that's 2,000 feet high, and with no ropes he climbs this thing, and it's crazy. To read his story, it's crazy because he's risking his life with every move, right? And it was interesting to me. They did an interview with him, and he talked about something that resonated with me like crazy, and it was this. And they said, how are you able to climb these massive mountains with no ropes and not die? Right? And he had a formula. He said, one is he gets trained. He says you make sure you get trained. Two is you make one good climbing decision after another. And then he said, don't freak out. The third thing is you don't freak out. So if something goes wrong, you can't freak out. He said if you freak out, you die. Obviously, if you do any of them, you die. If you don't get trained, you die. If you don't make one good climbing decision after another, over and over and over, you die. And if you freak out, you die. And it was interesting to me because, early on when I was trying to figure out how to, to be the best parent I could be, I wasn't trained. I didn't know what the crap I suffered because I struggled with thinking, am I doing the right things? Am I not doing the right things? Am I being the best dad I can be? Am I being the best parent I can be? And I didn't want to fail my kids on the spectrum. I didn't want to fail anybody in my family, my wife or my kids on the spectrum. And so I thought, I need to be trained. That's step one, right? Step one is to be trained. Well, interestingly enough, there's not a lot of training out there there is, but you can't do it when it gets hard, right? And so I developed some strategies for myself so that I could fall back on my training when things got really super hard. When my son melted down, or when he came back with his fist balled up, or when he cursed at me, or whatever the case may be. I developed a way as part of my own personal training to be able to adjust and use the training that I knew I should be doing. You see, a lot of dads I talk to, a lot of moms, they say, I know what I should do, but when things start to go wrong, I just can't do it. And that was my problem too. And so in being able to create a way for me to put myself in the optimum state in the worst possible times, I call it being at your best when your kids are at their worst, right? Which is the hardest time to do it, but that's what they needed from us. So I got trained, and I started to make one good decision after another, right? I don't have to think through 1,000 decisions, which is, if you think about Alex Honnold climbing a mountain, it's probably 10,000. It's probably 10,000 good, solid climbing moves. But he doesn't think about 10,000 good, solid climbing moves. He thinks about the very next one, right? Because if he doesn't get that one right, he dies, right? And so I started thinking about it that way. I said, you know what? I don't have to do everything right. I just have to do this right at this moment. I just have to do this right. And I can do that, right? I can make one good decision, especially if I'm in the right state. If I've trained myself when things get hard to be at my very best, then I can make a good decision. One good decision. And then you just start stacking those, right? Because all it is just one good decision. And finally, the third one is don't freak out, which is, I know in many cases, parents, when things start to go wrong, they go into fight or flight. Your kids curse at you. And so I actually created some systems for myself, some strategies that allowed me to foresee those things and plan for them to be at my best state. So, I've had many people over the years now tell me, you're so patient, and that's not it. and yes, I am patient. That is it. But by nature, I'm not a patient person. You can probably tell from my temperament, how I talk, how I do things. I like to get things done. I like to move. I like to go, right? So by nature, I'm not patient. But in learning how to put myself in the optimum state and not freak out, no matter what the situation is, it's allowed me to implement the very best strategies and steps and training that I already know, so that I can be the very best dad I can be for my kids on the spectrum, that I can be the very best husband for my wife. Obviously, you may not know this, but she passed away about a year ago. But it doesn't matter. I still need to be a good husband for my wife. I feel that way. And for my typical kids, I need to be the greatest. I want to be the greatest dad in the world. I want to go down as the greatest dad in the world. And because of the training I have now, and the training, making one good decision and not freaking out, I feel like I'm on my way to that. Now, we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. We know that. But knowing that, you can at least have confidence in the decisions you make, what you do, and how you do it, so that you can feel like the greatest dad in the world. Because, frankly, I do. And it's not because I do everything perfect. It's not, and I'm still learning. But I sure am working at it. I sure am trying. And being trained, making one good decision at a time, and not freaking out is a tremendous part of that process. So if you want to learn how to do that, connect with me. I'll show you how. I've got it all mapped out. There's a framework for it. The recipe is there. You just need to plug in. And it's, I'm learning after my lecture today. I realize I've simplified it so much that anybody can do it. And it was overwhelming to me because I was talking to some teenagers, some parents who younger parents, older parents, and there was even folks in there who were in their 70s. And they were all like, oh yeah, I got it. I even had one guy come up to me afterwards and he said, I've been struggling with my temper and patience for years. And he said, now I know how to fix it. I know what to do. I'm trained. I can make one good decision at a time, and I'm not going to freak out. And it was really fascinating to me because of the simplicity of what I've put together. So I'd love to share it with you. Reach out to me. Send me a quick message. Let me know. I want to be helpful, and we'll chat. I want to see the world a happier place. I want you to be the greatest dad ever. I want you to be the greatest mom ever, and I want you to feel confident that you're doing the right things to get you there. And what that would mean for your child on the spectrum is they've got can you imagine how much more potential they'll fulfill if you have the right training and you are guided by the right things, and you lower stress and you create happiness in your home because of how you feel about yourself and what you're doing for your child. It's a tremendous thing, I promise you. If you don't believe it, go back and look at some of my other videos and watch my family. My family is the family you want. It's happiness, it's joy. And even as we face those difficult situations, we thrive. And that's what I want for you. So reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.